The Grand Hall of the Galactic Empire was the largest room ever built by any species in the known universe. Its walls stretched so high that clouds formed near the ceiling. Pillars of pure crystal held up the roof, and each pillar hummed with energy stolen from dead stars. The floor was made from the compressed bones of conquered worlds. Everything about this place was designed to make visitors feel small and afraid. Today, the hall was full. Ambassadors from 97 different species stood in neat rows. Some had scales, some had fur, some floated in tanks of strange liquids, some had no bodies at all and existed only as shapes of light. But they all had one thing in common. They were all afraid. At the far end of the hall sat Emperor Velthos on his throne. He was not like the other species. His body was made of something that looked like white bone, but it moved like liquid. His eyes, numbered in the dozens, scattered across his face like stars in a dark sky. When he spoke, his voice did not come from his mouth. It came from everywhere at once. The Emperor had ruled the Galactic Empire for 900 years. In that time, he had conquered 17 spiral arms of the galaxy. He had destroyed species that refused to bow. He had turned proud civilizations into slaves. No one had ever defeated him. No one had ever even come close. Today, he was about to declare war on a new species, a young species, a species that had only discovered space travel 300 years ago, a species called humanity. Near the back of the hall, far from the throne, stood the human ambassador. His name was Park Jin-ho. He was a man of average height with messy black hair and a suit that looked like he had slept in it. While every other ambassador stood at attention with fear in their eyes, Jin-ho looked bored. His hands were in his pockets. He was looking at the ceiling like he was counting the clouds. Emperor Velthos began to speak. "Humanity," he said, and his voice made the walls shake. "Your species has been given a great honor. The Galactic Empire offered you a place among us. We asked only for tribute. We asked only for obedience. We asked only that you accept your natural place beneath us." Jin-ho yawned. He did not even try to hide it. The Emperor's many eyes narrowed. "You refused. Your leaders sent back our messengers with insults. They rejected our generous terms. They claimed that humanity would never bow to anyone." Around the hall, the other ambassadors began to whisper. They had never heard of any species refusing the Empire. It was suicide. It was madness. Therefore, Velthos continued, rising from his throne. "The Galactic Empire formally declares war upon humanity. Your worlds will burn. Your people will die. Your civilization will be erased from history. In 1,000 years, no one will even remember that you existed." The hall fell completely silent. Every eye turned to the human ambassador. Park Jin-ho did not react. Instead, he reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a folded newspaper. He opened it calmly and began to read. The silence stretched on. 1 second. 2 seconds. 10 seconds. Finally, Emperor Velthos spoke again. His voice was quieter now, but somehow more dangerous. "Human, did you hear what I said?" Jin-ho looked up from his newspaper. Oh yes, war, destruction, erased from history. Very scary." He looked back down at the paper. "Sorry. I just want to check the football scores. Busan was playing yesterday and I missed the game." A sound rippled through the hall. It took a moment for the translators to process it. The other ambassadors were gasping. Some were making sounds of pure terror. One species, the Malori, were so frightened that they changed color from blue to white. "You dare show such disrespect?" Velthos stepped down from his throne. His body shifted and grew larger with each step. "I have destroyed 10,000 worlds. I have killed trillions. My fleets darken the stars wherever they go." Jin-ho turned a page. "That is very impressive. You have one standard cycle to prepare for death. Use it to say goodbye to your loved ones. Use it to make peace with whatever gods you believe in. When my fleets arrive, there will be no mercy." The human ambassador finally folded his newspaper and put it back in his pocket. He looked at the Emperor with calm, almost friendly eyes. "That is very kind of you," Jin-ho said. "One whole cycle. Very generous. But honestly, Emperor, you could start right now. You could send every ship you have. It would not matter. The hall erupted in noise. The ambassadors could not believe what they were hearing. The Keth clicked their mandibles in confusion. The Valorians hummed with distress. The floating Nexari pulsed with chaotic light. Velthos stopped walking. His many eyes blinked one by one. "Explain yourself, human." Jinho smiled. It was a warm smile, the kind a teacher might give to a student who asked a silly question. "Emperor, do you know why humanity refused your offer? It was not pride. It was not stupidity. It was because we did not want to embarrass you." "Embarrass me? Your empire is very old, very powerful. You have conquered so much and killed so many. But you have never met a species like us. And I think, when you finally understand what we are, you will wish you had simply left us alone." Velthos laughed. The sound was like thunder and breaking glass mixed together. "You are insects. Your ships are toys. Your weapons are primitive. My advisors tell me your entire fleet could not scratch the paint on one of my cruisers." "Your advisors are correct," Jinho agreed. "Our ships are small. Our weapons are weak. By your standards, we are children playing with sticks." He paused. "But you are thinking about this all wrong. You see our ships and think that is our power. It is not. Then what is your power, human?" Jinho turned toward the exit. He took 3 steps, then stopped and looked back over his shoulder. "If I told you," he said softly, "you would not believe me. So instead, I will let you discover it for yourself. Send your fleets, Emperor. Send all of them, and when this is over, perhaps we can have a real conversation." He walked out of the hall, whistling a tune that no one recognized. Behind him, Emperor Velthos stood completely still. For the first time in 900 years, he felt something he did not recognize. It took him a moment to identify the emotion. It was doubt. He crushed it immediately. He turned to his advisors and gave the order. The invasion would begin at once. Humanity would learn the price of their arrogance, but deep in the back of his mind, in a place he would never admit existed, a single question lingered. Why had the human been smiling? Admiral Ko Minji stood at the window of Earth's greatest warship, the UES Dokdo. Through the thick glass, she could see the pale blue curve of Neptune and the endless black of space beyond. Stars glittered like diamonds scattered across velvet. It was beautiful. It was peaceful. It would not stay that way for long. Minji was 53 years old. Her hair was more gray than black now, and there were deep lines around her eyes from decades of service. She had joined the United Earth Navy when she was 20. She had fought pirates in the asteroid belt. She had helped rescue colonists from a dying station near Jupiter. She had done things she was proud of, and things she wished she could forget. But nothing in her long career had prepared her for this. The door behind her opened, and Commander Baek Sunho walked in. He was younger than her, maybe 40, with a serious face and careful eyes. He carried a tablet with the latest reports. "Admiral," he said, "Ambassador Park has returned from the Empire. The declaration is official." Minji did not turn from the window. "How long do we have?" "Imperial fleets are already gathering. Based on our intelligence, they will arrive in the outer solar system within 72 hours. "How many ships?" Sunho paused. 10,000. Minji finally turned around. Her face showed no fear, only a kind of tired acceptance. "And how many do we have?" 212 combat-ready vessels. Another 40 in repair. The numbers were absurd. It was not even a battle. It was an execution. Any normal species would be panicking right now. They would be loading evacuation ships. They would be sending desperate messages begging for mercy. But humanity was not a normal species. Not anymore. "The ambassador recommends Protocol Midnight," Sunho continued. Minji closed her eyes. She had hoped they would never need to use it. Protocol Midnight was humanity's last secret, the one they had hidden from the entire galaxy. It was the reason humans had stayed quiet and small, and seemingly harmless for 300 years. "Contact the Council," she said. "Tell them I need authorization within the hour." "Already done, Admiral." "Authorization came through 10 minutes ago. The awakened are ready to deploy." Minji nodded slowly. "Then may God have mercy on the Empire, because we will not need to." Far across the galaxy, General Threx stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Conquest. He was Keth, an insect-like species that had served the Empire loyally for thousands of years. His body was covered in hard black shell, and his face was a mass of mandibles and compound eyes. He had fought in over 100 wars. He had never lost. This war, he thought, would be his easiest victory. Report. He clicked to his tactical officer. The officer, a young Keth named Voss, pulled up a holographic display of the human solar system. General, our advanced scouts have completed their survey of the enemy territory. The results are unexpected. Unexpected how? The humans have no orbital defenses around their homeworld. No planetary shields. No weapons platforms. Their entire fleet is gathered near their 8th planet. Voss hesitated. General, their ships are primitive. They use fusion engines. Their weapons are chemical-based. By our standards, they are approximately 800 years behind us. Threx studied the display. Earth floated in the center, a tiny blue dot. It looked fragile, weak, easy to break. That cannot be right, he said. Scan again. We have scanned 7 times, General. The results are the same each time. The humans are technologically inferior in every measurable way. The General's mandibles clicked in confusion. He had expected something more. The human ambassador's behavior had been strange, arrogant, almost like he knew something the Empire did not. But the scans did not lie. Humanity was weak. They had no secret weapons. They had no hidden fleets. They were exactly what they appeared to be. A young species that had made a very foolish mistake. Perhaps they are simply insane, Voss suggested. Some species react to fear with irrational confidence. They refuse to accept reality until it destroys them. Perhaps, Threx agreed. But something still bothered him. A good general learned to trust his instincts, and his instincts were screaming that something was wrong. He pulled up the recording of the human ambassador's speech. He watched it again, and again. Each time, he focused on the man's eyes. There was no fear there. No denial. No madness. There was something else. Something that looked almost like pity. Threx dismissed the thought. He was being foolish. The humans were nothing. Their confidence was the empty bravado of the doomed. Prepare the fleet, he ordered. We jump in 48 hours. I want this war finished within a week. Back on Earth. In a small apartment in Seoul, Professor Shin Tae-woo was making tea. He was 78 years old, with thin white hair and hands that shook slightly when he moved. He needed a cane to walk, and his eyes were not as sharp as they used to be. But his mind was clearer than it had ever been. There was a knock at his door. He did not need to answer it. The door opened on its own, and a young woman walked in. Her name was Dr. Lee Sujin, and she was one of his best students. Professor, she said. The council is calling all awakened to duty. The Empire's fleet will be here in 3 days. Shin poured 2 cups of tea. Sit, drink, we have time. Sujin sat, but she did not drink. Her hands were trembling. Professor, I am scared. Not of the Empire. I am scared of what we might have to do. The old man smiled gently. That fear is good. It means you still remember what it is to be human. When we stop fearing our own power, we become monsters. But what if they force us to use our full strength? What if we have to kill them all? Shin sipped his tea. That is not how this will happen. Admiral Ko understands. The Council understands. We will show the Empire our power, yes. But we will not become what they are. We will not become conquerors and killers. Then what will we do? We will give them a choice. The same choice every thinking being deserves. The choice to learn. The choice to grow. The choice to become something better than they were. Sujin finally picked up her tea. And if they refuse? Professor Shin looked out his window at the Seoul skyline. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. It was beautiful. Earth was beautiful. And soon, an army of 10,000 ships would come to destroy it. If they refuse, he said quietly, then we will wait. Humanity has learned patience. We have been waiting for the galaxy to grow up. We can wait a little longer. The tea grew cold in their cups. Outside, The stars began to appear one by one, like old friends coming home. And somewhere in the darkness between worlds, 10,000 ships prepared to bring death to a planet that did not fear them. The Empire thought this was the end of humanity. They did not know it was the beginning of something else entirely. The Imperial fleet emerged from hyperspace like a swarm of angry insects. 10,000 ships, each one larger than a mountain, spread across the darkness between Neptune and Uranus. Their hulls were black and sharp, designed to inspire fear. Their weapons glowed with the light of captured suns. They were the most powerful military force ever assembled by any civilization in the history of the galaxy. General Threx stood on the bridge of the Eternal Conquest and smiled. Well, he made the expression that passed for a smile among the Keth. His mandibles spread wide, and his compound eyes gleamed with anticipation. Status report, he clicked. All ships have arrived safely, General. Weapons are charged. Shields are at full power. We await your orders. Threx looked at the tactical display. The human fleet was exactly where they expected it to be, clustered near Neptune's largest moon. 200 small ships against 10,000 giants. It was almost sad. Open a channel to the humans, he ordered. I want to give them one final chance to surrender. The Emperor prefers live slaves to dead enemies. The communication officer worked his console. Channel, open, General. Threx straightened his posture. Attention, human fleet. This is General Threx of the Galactic Empire. You are outnumbered and outmatched. Your weapons cannot hurt us. Your ships cannot outrun us. Surrender now, and you will be allowed to live as servants of the Empire. Refuse, and you will be destroyed. You have 1 minute to decide. The seconds ticked by. 30 seconds. 45. 50. Then a face appeared on the main screen. It was a young human woman with dark hair pulled back in a simple style. She wore a plain gray uniform with a single ship symbol on her chest. Her name, according to the translation software, was Captain Yoon Hana. She was smiling. General Threx, she said pleasantly. Thank you for the offer. I will pass it along to my superiors. She tilted her head slightly. But I am afraid I must also give you a warning. You are entering restricted space. Please turn your ships around and leave immediately. This is your only chance to go home safely. On bridges across the Imperial fleet, officers burst into laughter. The sound of 10,000 crews mocking a single tiny ship filled the communication channels. Threx did not laugh. He was watching the human captain's eyes. They were calm. Completely calm. Not the false calm of someone hiding their fear. The real calm of someone who knew something he did not. That look bothered him. You are brave, he admitted. But bravery means nothing against superior firepower. This is your last warning. Surrender or die. Captain Yoon nodded slowly. I understand. And I want you to remember, General, that we gave you a choice. We did not want this. You did. She closed the channel. Threx felt his patience snap. All ships, open fire. Destroy the human fleet. Leave no survivors. 1,000 ships in the front line unleashed their weapons at once. Plasma beams as hot as stellar cores. Antimatter missiles that could crack moons. Graviton lances that could tear holes in space itself. The combined firepower was enough to destroy a small planet. All of it was aimed at a single human ship. The Sejong, captained by Yoon Hana. The Sejong did not move. It did not try to dodge. It simply sat there in the darkness, waiting. The weapon struck, and then, something impossible happened. The attack stopped. Not missed. Not deflected. Stopped. They hung in space like flies frozen in amber. Plasma beams that should have been traveling at near light speed became still, as statues. Missiles that should have been screaming toward their target floated motionless. Graviton lances that should have been invisible. Waves of destruction became visible, frozen spirals of distorted light. For 3 heartbeats, the universe held its breath. Then the weapons turned around. General Threx watched in horror as every single attack reversed direction. Plasma beams curved backward. Missiles spun in place and accelerated toward the ships that had launched them. Graviton lances folded back on themselves. Shields, he screamed. All ships, raise shields. It was too late. 1,000 ships died in the same instant. They did not explode gradually. They did not break apart piece by piece. They simply ceased to exist, replaced by expanding clouds of gas and debris. 1,000 crews. Millions of soldiers. Gone in the time it takes to blink. The rest of the fleet froze. No one moved. No one spoke. They had just witnessed something that should have been impossible. Something that broke every law of physics they knew. Captain Yunhana's face reappeared on the main screen. She was still smiling, but there was sadness in her eyes now. "We warned you," she said softly. "We did not want to do this, but you did not listen." She leaned forward slightly. "General Threx, please listen now. Go home. Tell your emperor that humanity does not want war. Tell him that we are willing to talk, but if you continue this attack, we will defend ourselves. And we will not lose." Threx's mandibles were shaking. His compound eyes darted between the tactical display, which showed the wreckage of 1,000 ships, and the main screen, which showed the face of a young woman who had just killed millions without moving from her chair. "How?" he managed to ask. "How is this possible?" "That is a conversation for another time. For now, you have a choice. Leave and live. Stay and die." She paused. "You have 1 minute to decide." Around Threx, his officers were panicking. Some were calling for retreat. Some were calling for reinforcements. Some were simply staring at their screens in shock, unable to process what they had seen. But Threx was a general. He had spent his entire life fighting. He had never retreated. He had never shown weakness. His pride would not allow it. "All remaining ships," he ordered, his voice steadier than he felt. "Prepare for maximum assault. Target that ship with everything we have. Fire on my command." 9,000 ships raised their weapons. Captain Yoon sighed. "I am sorry you made this choice." On the bridge of the Sejong, she closed her eyes. Around her, 100 human officers did the same. Their minds reached out across the void, touching the fabric of reality itself. On the bridge of the Eternal Conquest, General Threx opened his mouth to give the order to fire. He never got the chance. Every weapon in the Imperial fleet stopped working. Not destroyed, just stopped. Energy readings dropped to 0. Missiles went dead in their tubes. Shields flickered and vanished. Then the lights went out, not just on one ship. On all 9,000 ships. Every light, every screen, every system. The greatest fleet in galactic history went dark and silent in a single instant. In the blackness, General Threx heard something. It took him a moment to realize it was a voice. A human voice. Captain Yunhana, speaking directly into his mind. "Sleep now," she said gently. "When you wake up, this will be over. And perhaps then, we can talk like civilized beings." Threx tried to resist. He tried to stay awake, but a wave of tiredness washed over him, stronger than anything he had ever felt. His eyes closed, his body slumped. Around him, every single soldier in the Imperial fleet fell into a deep, peaceful sleep. The battle was over. It had lasted less than 5 minutes, and humanity had not fired a single shot. Far away, aboard the Dokdo, Admiral Kominji watched the tactical display update. 9,000 enemy ships, disabled but intact. Crews alive but unconscious. Weapons offline, shields down. "Send recovery teams," she ordered. "I want medical personnel on every ship within the hour. Make sure none of them are hurt." Commander Beck looked at her with surprise. "We are going to help them? They came here to kill us. They came here because they did not understand," Minji replied. "Now they will have a chance to learn." She turned away from the display and walked toward the door. "Contact Ambassador Park. Tell him the first part is done. Now comes the hard part." "What is the hard part, Admiral?" Minji paused at the door, explaining to an empire that has only known conquest that there is another way to exist. She smiled, but there was no joy in it. "That, Commander, is much harder than winning a battle." Emperor Velthos had not moved from his throne in 3 days. His advisors brought him reports. His servants brought him food. He ignored both. He simply sat and stared at the holographic display floating before him, watching the same recording over and over. 9,000 ships, disabled in seconds, without a single human weapon being fired. His greatest fleet. his finest general, his most powerful warriors, all of them defeated by a young woman who had not even stood up from her chair. How? The question burned in his mind like acid. He had ruled the galaxy for 900 years. He had seen technologies that could reshape planets and weapons that could crack suns. But he had never seen anything like this. He had never even imagined anything like this. The door to his chamber opened. An advisor, a small creature covered in silver scales, crept in nervously. "Emperor," it said, its voice barely above a whisper. "The human ambassador has requested an audience. He says he wishes to explain." Velthos did not respond at first. He continued staring at the display. Then, slowly, he raised one hand and waved it. "Send him in." Ambassador Park Jin-ho walked into the Emperor's chamber with the same casual confidence he had shown at their first meeting. His suit was still rumpled. His hair was still messy. He looked like a man who had just woken up from a nap, not a representative of a species that had just humiliated the greatest empire in the galaxy. But this time, he was not alone. Two others walked beside him. The first was an old man with thin white hair and kind eyes. He walked slowly, using a cane, but there was a strange energy around him. The air seemed to shimmer slightly wherever he stepped. The second was a young woman with a calm, intelligent face. She carried a simple tablet and wore a plain white coat. She looked like a scientist, not a warrior. "Emperor Velthos," Jin-ho said, bowing slightly. "Thank you for seeing us. May I introduce Professor Shin Tae-woo and Dr. Lee Sujin. They are here to help answer your questions." Velthos leaned forward, his many eyes focused on the old man. "You. What are you?" Professor Shin smiled gently. "I am human, just like the ambassador, just like the young captain who disabled your fleet. We are all the same species. Impossible. No species can do what you did. You stopped energy weapons with thought. You reversed matter streams. You put an entire army to sleep with nothing but your minds. And yet we did these things. You saw the recordings yourself." The Emperor's voice rose. "Then explain. How? What technology do you possess? What machines? What devices?" Dr. Lee stepped forward, holding up her tablet. "That is what we are here to discuss, Emperor. But first, you must understand something important. What we have is not technology. We do not use machines or devices. We use something else entirely." She pressed a button on her tablet, and a holographic image appeared in the air between them. It showed a map of the galaxy, with the Empire's territory marked in red. It covered almost half of the known stars. "Your empire is old," Sujin said. "It has existed for over 10,000 years. In that time, you have conquered countless species. You have developed incredible technology. Your ships can cross the galaxy in days. Your weapons can destroy worlds. By any normal measure, you are the most advanced civilization in existence. And yet you defeated us," Velthos growled. "Yes, because advancement is not just about machines." Professor Shin raised his hand. Without any visible effort, the air around his fingers began to glow. Objects in the room started to float. The Emperor's advisors cried out in alarm, but Velthos remained still, watching with all his eyes. 300 years ago, Shin said, humanity made a discovery. We had been asking questions that other species never bothered to ask. Questions about consciousness, about the relationship between mind and reality, about what happens when a thinking being truly understands the universe it exists within. He lowered his hand, and the floating object settled gently back into place. We discovered that consciousness is not separate from reality. It is part of reality, and when a mind reaches a certain level of understanding, it can interact with reality directly. We call this process the awakening. Velthos was silent for a long moment. You are saying you can control reality with your thoughts? Not control, Sujin corrected. Interact. There is a difference. We cannot create something from nothing. We cannot break the fundamental laws of physics, but we can influence probability. We can redirect energy. We can communicate mind to mind. We can do many things that seem like magic, but are actually just a deeper understanding of how the universe works. And your captain? The one who disabled my fleet? Yoon Hana is one of our most gifted awakened. What she did was difficult, but not impossible for someone of her ability. She reached out with her mind and touched the fundamental forces that power your ships. She did not destroy them. She simply asked them, very politely, to stop working for a while. The Emperor rose from his throne. He was enormous, towering over the three humans like a mountain over ants. His body shifted and rippled, displaying his agitation. "This is impossible," he said. "Consciousness cannot affect physical reality. The mind is separate from matter. This is basic science. It is basic science for species that evolved under constant threat," Professor Shin replied calmly. "Think about your history, Emperor. Your species developed on a world of extreme danger. Predators, radiation, natural disasters. You had to fight to survive every single day. Your entire evolution was shaped by the need to master your environment before it killed you." He paused, letting his words sink in. Humanity was different. Our world was gentle. We had dangers, yes, but nothing like what your ancestors faced. We had time. Time to think. Time to ask useless questions. Time to wonder about the nature of existence itself. While your species was building weapons to survive, we were building philosophies to understand. Sujin nodded. "That is why you never discovered what we discovered. You were too busy surviving to ask the questions that would have led you to the answer. You developed technology to change reality from the outside. We developed the ability to change reality from the inside." Velthos was quiet for a long time. The humans waited, giving him space to process. Finally, he spoke. "How many of your kind have this ability?" "We call it the awakening," Jinho said. "And currently, about 4 billion humans have achieved it." The Emperor's advisors made sounds of shock and terror. 4 billion. That was more than the population of most species. That was an army of beings who could each do what Captain Yun Hana had done. "Every human soldier," Jinho continued, "every human citizen who has completed the awakening is capable of what you witnessed. Some are stronger than others, of course. Some have specialized in certain abilities, but all of them can do things that your technology cannot stop." Velthos sank back onto his throne. For the first time in 900 years, he looked old, tired, defeated. "Then why did you not conquer us?" he asked quietly. "Why did you stay hidden? Why did you pretend to be weak?" Professor Shin walked forward slowly, his cane tapping against the floor. He stopped a few feet from the throne and looked up at the ancient emperor with something like compassion in his eyes. "Because power without wisdom is destruction," he said. "We learned that lesson long ago, when we first discovered what we could do. We had wars among ourselves, terrible wars. We almost destroyed our own species with our new abilities. But you survived. We survived because we learned. We learned that true strength is not in what you can destroy. It is in what you can build, what you can protect, what you can heal." He reached out and touched the Emperor's throne gently. "We hid, not because we were afraid of you. We hid because we were afraid of ourselves. We needed time to become wise enough to use our power well. And now?" Shin smiled. "Now we believe we are ready. Ready to meet the galaxy. Ready to share what we have learned. Ready to help other species find their own path to awakening." His smile faded slightly, "But only if they are willing. We will never force our way on anyone. That would make us no better than the empire we hope to change." Velthos looked at the old human for a long moment. Then he looked at the young scientist. Then at the rumpled ambassador. "What do you want from us?" he asked finally. Jinho stepped forward. "We want to talk. We want to understand you. And we want you to understand us. We want to show you that there is another way to exist in this universe besides conquest and war. And if we refuse, then we will leave you alone. We will not attack you. We will not invade your worlds. We will simply wait. Eventually, your empire will change or it will fall. All empires do. And when that happens, we will still be here, ready to talk." The Emperor closed his many eyes. When he opened them again, there was something different in his expression. Not acceptance. Not yet. But perhaps the beginning of curiosity. "You are a strange species," he said. Professor Shin laughed softly. "Yes. We have been told that before. But strange is not always bad. Sometimes, strange is exactly what the universe needs. The news spread across the empire like fire through dry grass. The greatest fleet in history, defeated without a fight. General Threx, the unbeatable warrior, sleeping like a child while humans walked freely through his ships, the Emperor himself, meeting with human ambassadors and listening to their strange ideas about consciousness and peace. It was too much. The Empire had been built on strength, on victory, on the absolute certainty that they could destroy anyone who opposed them. Now that certainty was gone, and the creatures who remained did not know how to live without it, so they did the only thing they knew how to do. They fought back. From 17 spiral arms, ships began to move. Not 10,000 this time, not 100,000. Every single warship the Empire possessed. Every weapon. Every soldier. A fleet so large that it would take 3 days just to count all the vessels. 300 trillion beings, united in one final desperate assault against humanity. Admiral Kominji received the report aboard the Docto. She read it carefully, then set it down on her desk and looked out the window at the stars. "How many?" Commander Bake asked quietly. "All of them," Minji replied. "Every ship they have. Every soldier. Every weapon." She laughed, but there was no humor in it. "They are sending everything. They would rather die than accept what we showed them. What do we do?" Minji was quiet for a long moment. Then she turned to face her commander. "We do what we have always done. We show them a better way. And if they refuse to see it, then we show them again. And again. As many times as it takes." She walked toward the door. "Contact all awakened forces. Tell them to prepare for Protocol Dawn." "Dawn? Not midnight?" Minji paused. "Midnight was about showing our power. Dawn is about showing our mercy." She opened the door. "We are not going to kill them, Commander. We are going to save them from themselves." 3 days later, the Imperial Armada arrived at the edge of human space. It was the largest gathering of military power in the history of the galaxy. Ships stretched across space like an ocean of metal and fire, weapons charged, shields raised, soldiers ready to die for their empire. At the front of the fleet, on a new flagship called the Final Victory, stood General Threx. He had been awake for only 2 days, and he still did not fully understand what had happened to him. But he understood one thing clearly. He had been humiliated, and he wanted revenge. "All ships," he ordered, his voice harsh with anger. "On my command, we attack. Hold nothing back. Destroy everything human you see." Across space, the human response was quiet. Simple. A single message, sent from Admiral Kominji to every Imperial ship: "We do not want to fight you. Please turn back. This is your last chance to choose peace." Threx deleted the message without reading it fully. "Attack," he commanded. The Imperial Armada surged forward. Engines roared. Weapons fired. The largest assault in galactic history began with a wave of destruction aimed at the small blue planet called Earth, and then the awakened responded. They did not fight. They did not kill. They did not even defend themselves in any traditional sense. Instead, they reached out with their minds and touched every single being in the Imperial fleet. Not to harm, to heal. Across 300 trillion soldiers, a wave of calm spread like warm water. Anger faded. Fear disappeared. Hatred melted away, replaced by a strange, peaceful emptiness. Weapons stopped firing, not because they were disabled, but because the creatures holding them no longer wanted to use them. General Threx felt it wash over him. One moment, he was filled with rage and the desire for vengeance. The next, he was simply standing on his bridge, wondering why he had been so angry. The emotion seemed distant now, like a dream he could barely remember. "What is happening?" he asked. But his voice was calm, curious, not frightened. A figure appeared on the bridge beside him. It was Dr. Lee Sujin, the young human scientist he had seen in the recordings. But she was not really there, he realized. She was a projection, an image created directly in his mind. "We are showing you what you could feel," she said gently. "This peace, this calm, this freedom from hatred and fear. This is what awakening offers. Not power over others. Power over yourself. Threx looked down at his claws. They were shaking, but not with anger. With something else. Something he had not felt in a very long time. I have fought my entire life, he said quietly. I have killed millions. I have destroyed worlds. I do not know how to be anything else. Sujin smiled sadly. That is not true. You simply forgot. Long ago, before your species learned to conquer, you were something else. You built things instead of destroying them. You created instead of killing. That part of you still exists. It is just buried very deep. How do you know? Because that part exists in every thinking being. The capacity for creation, for kindness, for peace. The Empire taught you to ignore it. We want to help you remember. Across the fleet, similar conversations were happening. Billions of minds, touching billions of soldiers, showing them possibilities they had never imagined, offering them a choice they had never been given. Not everyone accepted. Some clung to their anger, their hatred, their need for violence. The awakened did not force them, they simply waited, holding the peaceful calm in place, giving the others time to think. It took 6 hours, 6 hours of silence, of stillness, of minds reaching out to minds across the void. Then, one by one, the Imperial ships began to power down, not because they were forced to, because their crews chose to. They lowered their weapons. They dropped their shields. They sat in the darkness of space and waited to see what would happen next. On the final victory, General Threx made a decision. Open a channel to the human admiral, he ordered. Minji's face appeared on his screen. She looked tired but hopeful. General, she said. What can I do for you? Threx paused. The words felt strange in his mouth, unfamiliar after a lifetime of war. But he forced them out anyway. I would like to talk, he said, about peace. About this awakening you speak of. About whether there might be another way. Minji smiled. It was the first genuine smile she had allowed herself in weeks. I would like that too, General. I would like that very much. 1 year later, the Galactic Assembly met for the first time. Representatives from 99 species gathered in a new hall built on neutral ground. Not the Emperor's Hall of Crystal and Bone, a simple building of wood and stone, designed by human and Imperial architects, working together. Ambassador Park Jinho stood at the entrance, greeting each delegation as they arrived. He was wearing a new suit, finally, though it was already starting to get wrinkled. Some things never changed. Beside him stood Professor Shin Tae-woo, older now but still sharp, still kind. He watched the gathered species with wonder in his eyes. I never thought I would live to see this, he said quietly. See what? Jinho asked. The galaxy learning to grow up. Inside the hall, Emperor Velthos sat in a simple chair, no longer on a throne. He was still enormous, still ancient, but something in his posture had changed. He looked more like a student than a conqueror now. Listening as Dr. Lee Sujin explained the first steps of awakening to a crowd of eager delegates. It will take time, she was saying. Generations, perhaps, but consciousness is not unique to humans. The potential exists in all thinking beings. You simply need to learn how to reach for it. Admiral Ko Minji stood near the back of the room, watching. Commander Beck was beside her, as always. Do you think it will work? He asked. Do you think they can really change? Minji considered the question. She looked at Velthos, who was asking Sujin a question about meditation. She looked at General Threx, who was having a quiet conversation with Captain Yoon Hana. She looked at the dozens of species who had spent thousands of years fighting each other, now sitting peacefully in the same room. I do not know, she admitted. Change is hard. It takes time. There will be setbacks. There will be failures. Some species may never accept what we are offering. Then why do you look so happy? Minji smiled. Because for the first time in galactic history, we are trying. We are talking instead of fighting. We are building instead of destroying. We are asking questions instead of giving orders. She turned to look at her old friend. That is how change begins. Sunho. Not with victory. With hope. In the front row of the assembly, Jinho finally sat down. He pulled out a folded newspaper from his jacket pocket. It was an old habit, one he could not seem to break. Sujin noticed and smiled. Still reading the sports section, Ambassador? Jinho grinned. I need to check the final scores. Busan had their championship match last night. Did they win? He unfolded the paper and scanned the headlines. His grin widened. Yes, he said. They did, and somehow, sitting in a room full of former enemies who were slowly learning to become friends, that small victory felt like the most important one of all. Outside the assembly hall, the stars shone down on a galaxy that was finally, after 10,000 years of war, beginning to find its way toward peace. It would not be easy. It would not be quick, but it had begun, and that was enough. For now, that was more than enough.